My 18th birthday was supposed to be the start of my life. Instead, it felt like the end. The cake on the table had one candle. It was cheap, store-bought. My stepfather, Richard, didn't look at it. He was too busy being angry that his own 60th birthday was in the same week. He said my celebration was cluttering the calendar. My name is Luna. For the last 10 years, since my real dad died, I've lived in this house with my mom and Richard. I was always the extra piece in their perfect new family puzzle. The picture was Richard, my mom Miranda, and the ghost of his perfect daughter from his first marriage, Celeste. I was the smudge on the glass. The dinner was quiet, just the sound of knives on plates. My mom finally spoke. "Make a wish, Luna." Before I could even close my eyes, Richard put down his fork. The sound was too loud. "I have a birthday wish too," he said, looking right at me. His voice was calm, which was worse than yelling. "The greatest gift for my 60th is if you disappear from this family. For good. You're an adult now. It's time you made your own way." The air left the room. I looked at my mom. Her eyes dropped to her plate. She didn't say, "Stop it." She didn't say, "That's cruel." She just nodded, a small, weak movement. Then she added the final cut. "Celeste is moving back to the city next month," she said, still not looking at me. "She'll need your room. It's for the best. His real daughter will take it from here." His real daughter. The words hung in the air. I wasn't real. I was temporary. For 10 years, I had lived in this house, and I was just a placeholder for someone else. I didn't cry. A strange, cold numbness filled my chest. I looked from Richard's satisfied face to my mother's guilty one. "Okay," I said, my voice flat. "If that's what you want." They seemed surprised I didn't fight. Richard recovered quickly. "Good. We'll give you a week to pack. Clean out your things." I stood up from the table, my birthday cake untouched, and went to my room. I heard them talking in low, relieved voices in the kitchen. They'd done it. They'd removed the problem. I started packing that night. The numbness kept the tears away. I was pulling old books from my closet shelf when I saw it. A thick, yellowing envelope, shoved to the very back. It was addressed to me, in care of my mother. The return address was a law firm, Harper and Lowe. The date on it was from over 5 years ago. Across the front, in my mother's handwriting, it said, "For Luna, to be opened on her 18th birthday." She had never given it to me. My heart started to beat in a slow, heavy rhythm. I sat on the floor and carefully tore it open. Inside was a letter from a man named Mr. Lowe. He was my father's lawyer. "Dear Luna, for your father's final instructions, this letter is to inform you of the Aurora Trust, established for your benefit with the proceeds of his life insurance policy. The primary asset of this trust is the down payment for the property at 1821 Maple Drive, the house in which you reside. Your mother, Miranda, and her husband, Richard Gable, were granted the right to live in the property and were responsible for the monthly mortgage payments. However, legal title has always been held in the trust. Upon you turning 18 years of age, full control and ownership of the Aurora Trust and all its assets, including the property, transfer to you as the sole beneficiary. You may contact this office at that time to begin the process of assuming your legal rights." The words blurred. I read it again. And again. The house. This house. The down payment came from my dad's life insurance. My dad bought this house. Not Richard. Richard had just been paying the mortgage all these years, like a tenant. The paper in my hand said the house belonged to a trust. And on my 18th birthday, which was today, it belonged to me. I wasn't a guest being kicked out. I was the landlord. And my tenants had just illegally tried to evict the owner. The cold numbness in my chest melted, replaced by a burning, clear calm. I carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. I finished packing my clothes, my photos of my dad, my important papers. I acted broken. I let them see me with red eyes. A week later, my bags were by the front door. Richard looked pleased. "All set? Need a ride somewhere?" "No," I said softly. "I'm all set." I picked up my bags. I took one last look at my mother, who was wringing her hands, but saying nothing. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out. But I wasn't headed for a friend's couch or a cheap rental. I had an appointment. I was going to see Mr. Lowe, my father's lawyer. They had told me to disappear from their family. So I would. And I would start by disappearing the ground right from under their feet. Mr. Lowe's office was quiet and smelled like old paper and wood polish. He was an older man with kind eyes behind thin glasses. He was not surprised to see me. He was surprised I was only coming now. "I've been expecting you for years, Luna," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "I wrote to you. I even called your home once. Your mother said you weren't interested in dull legal matters and to leave you be." So she had known. She had actively hidden this. The last piece of my heart for her froze solid. I slid the unopened envelope across his desk. "I found this last week. In my closet. My stepfather told me to leave." My mother agreed. Mr. Lowe's face became very serious. He nodded slowly. "I see. Then let's make your position crystal clear." He opened a large file. "The Aurora Trust is yours. The house at 1821 Maple Drive is the Trust's primary asset. You are now the legal owner. Richard and Miranda Gable have no ownership claim. They are, in legal terms, tenants. By demanding you leave, they are attempting an unlawful eviction of the property owner." Hearing it out loud made it real. A powerful calm settled over me. "What can I do?" "Anything an owner can do," he said. "You can choose to let them live there under a new, formal lease with rent. Or, given their actions, you can choose to have them removed." A plan, cold and perfect, formed in my mind. "I want to sell the house," I said. "I want them out. And I don't want them to know it's me doing it until it's too late." Mr. Lowe allowed a small, professional smile. "That is your right. We will need to move in 2 steps. First, we end their right to live there. Second, we reclaim and sell the asset." He drafted the papers. The first was a notice to quit for unlawful detainer. It was a formal eviction notice. It stated the owner was terminating their right to occupy the property and they had 30 days to vacate. The second was a letter to the bank. As the verified owner, I instructed them to cancel the automatic mortgage payments coming from Richard's account. The bank would then contact him directly for payment. If he failed, the foreclosure process would start against him, not me. "They will be very confused," Mr. Lowe said. "They will call the bank. The bank will tell them the owner of the property has stopped accepting their payments. They will receive an eviction notice from an owner they believe is themselves. The chaos will give us time." "Perfect," I whispered. The next morning, 2 things happened at exactly 9 a.m. At the house, a uniformed process server knocked on the door. Richard answered, expecting a package. The man handed him a thick legal envelope. "You've been served," he said, then left. Richard opened it to find the eviction notice. His shouts of confusion were so loud the neighbors later told me they heard. At Richard's bank, a fax arrived from Mr. Lowe's office with my verified signature and the deed. It canceled the payment authorization for the Maple Drive mortgage. An hour later, Richard received an automated alert. Scheduled payment canceled by payee. My phone exploded. First, a text from my mother. "Luna, what is happening?" The bank called. "There are papers." Then, a call from Richard. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was a mixture of rage and panic. "Luna, did you do something? This is a mistake. Call me right now." I blocked both their numbers. I met with a real estate agent that afternoon. I signed the papers to list my house for sale. "Motivated seller," I said. "Price it to sell fast." The for sale sign went up in the yard that evening. The chaos I imagined was real. Richard hired a lawyer. His lawyer called Mr. Lowe. We later got the report. Richard's lawyer said, "My clients are the owners of 1821 Maple Drive. There is a fraudulent eviction attempt." Mr. Lowe's reply was simple. He emailed a copy of the deed, the trust documents, and my birth certificate. "The owner is Luna Reed. Your clients are tenants. The eviction stands. The sale proceeds." There was silence on the other end of the phone. Then, sputtering. Richard's world was crumbling because of a truth he never bothered to learn. I rented a small, clean apartment using money from the trust for a security deposit. I enrolled in community college. I started building a life that was entirely mine. Every day, I drove past the house. I saw strange cars, potential buyers. I saw Richard standing on the porch, yelling into his phone, his face red. I saw my mother crying on the steps. They had 30 days. On the 29th day, the realtor called. We have a full-price cash offer. The buyer wants a quick close. Can we do the final owner walkthrough tomorrow? Yes, I said. The sale would be final in 48 hours. Richard and Miranda would be legally trespassing. That night, I went to the house for the last time. It was dark and empty. They had moved their things out that afternoon, defeated. The lockbox for the realtor was on the door. I used the key inside. I walked through the hollow rooms. My footsteps echoed. This was no longer my home. It was just a house. An asset. And I was liquidating it. I wasn't there to trash it. Vandalism was for angry children. I was an owner. My revenge would be a statement. In the middle of the bare living room floor, where their sofa used to be, I placed my final exhibit. I set down a simple black picture frame. Inside it, I placed 3 documents side by side, the trust paper with my name, the eviction order, and a photo of me and my real father, smiling. In front of the frame, I placed a single sheet of white paper with a typed message. My work was done. I stood up, dusted off my hands, and took one last look at the empty shell that had held so much loneliness. Now it held my truth. I locked the door behind me and slipped the key back into the realtor's box. They were gone. I had disappeared from their family, just as they asked. Tomorrow, they would come back, desperate for one last look or to steal the light bulbs. And they would find what I left for them. The house sold the next day. The papers were signed electronically. The money, a large and life-changing sum, landed in the account for the Aurora Trust. My account. It was done. I knew they would go back. People like Richard, beaten and furious, always returned to scavenge. He would want to see what he had lost. My mother would hope to find some trace of me, some leftover piece to soothe her guilt. I was right. The morning after the sale closed, while the new owners were still arranging their move, Richard's car screeched to a halt in the driveway. My mother was with him. From my rented car down the street, I watched through sunglasses. He stalked to the front door, found it locked, and then went to the side gate. It was unlocked. He shoved it open and marched into the backyard, my mother trailing behind him. This was my cue. I walked calmly up the driveway. I didn't go inside. I stood at the corner of the house, near the living room window, which was still bare. I could see and hear everything. The house was a hollow shell. No furniture. No curtains. Just sunlight on dusty floors. Richard was ranting. It's all gone. The little witch cleaned us out. I'll sue her. I'll find her. My mother's voice was a thin wail. Where did we go wrong? How could she do this to us? Then, they walked into the living room. They stopped dead. In the center of the empty space, where their world had been, was my display. Richard stomped over to it. What is this? More of her garbage. He leaned down and read the framed documents. His rants cut off. The color drained from his face. He saw the deed. He saw the trust papers with my name as sole beneficiary. He saw the eviction order stamped by the court. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time, he was truly silent. My mother crept forward. She saw the photo in the frame. It was of me, age 7, on my real father's shoulders, both of us laughing. A memory she had tried to erase. Her hand flew to her mouth. A choked sob escaped. Then she saw the single white page in front of the frame. She picked it up with trembling hands. Her eyes scanned the typed words. I had written them myself. It read, "A final accounting for Tenants Gable. 1. You requested I disappear. I have. 2. You claimed my room. I have claimed the house. 3. You canceled my place in your family. I have canceled your place in my home. 4. The mortgage you paid was rent. The down payment was my father's love. You were never the owners. You were the guests. And you have overstayed your welcome. The homeowner." My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. The paper fluttered from her fingers. She understood the full, horrible truth. She had helped steal from her own daughter. She had chosen a man over her child, and in doing so, she had chosen a lie over an inheritance. She collapsed to her knees on the dusty floor. Richard didn't move to help her. He was staring at the deed, his shoulders slumping. The arrogant bluster was gone. He looked like a man who had built his castle on a crack, and it had finally swallowed him whole. All his control, his posturing, his belief that he was the provider, it was ash. He had been paying another man's mortgage in another man's house, and he never even knew it. I watched them for a moment longer, the broken woman on the floor, the deflated man standing over her. This was the shock I had left in the empty house. Not a mess. Not a threat. Just the inescapable truth. It was the one thing their lies could not survive. I turned and walked away. I didn't need to see anymore. The revenge was complete. It was not loud or violent. It was quiet, legal, and absolute. It was the sound of a lock clicking shut. A week later, I was in my new apartment. It was small, but it was mine. I was packing a box of books for college. My phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. It was my mother. Her voice was ragged, hollow. Luna. A long pause. I read the note. I saw the papers. I said nothing. I'm sorry, she whispered. It was the first real apology in 10 years. It meant nothing. Can we talk? I looked around my quiet, safe space. I thought of the trust fund now securing my future. I thought of the father who had provided for me from beyond the grave. No, I said, my voice calm and final. We can't. You made your choice. I've made mine. Goodbye, Mom. I ended the call. I blocked the number. I felt a final, small piece of weight lift from my chest. It was over. With part of the money from the house, I did one more thing. I set up a scholarship in my father's name at the local community college. It was for students who had lost a parent, to help them get a start. I turned his protection of me into protection for others. The revenge was sweet not because I hurt them, but because I freed myself. They wanted me to vanish. So I did. I vanished from their story of control and lack, and I stepped into my own story of strength and legacy. They are stuck in the past, in the dust of an empty living room, forever facing the proof of their own betrayal. I am not there. I am already gone. And I am never looking back.